taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Acura TLX. This 12.3-inch screen is the only version that you're going to find. And one interesting thing about the screen is that it's not actually a touchscreen. So it's just a display. In order to actually be able to move around the infotainment system, you're going to be using the trackpad just along the very bottom here. So you'll be able to move around into the various pages. You can swipe across in order to get to additional pages that way. There's a basic back button, get to your home screen. You could adjust the cards along the right-hand side, and then you can adjust that little right screen. So this main pad is going to adjust the main part of the screen along the outside there. And then this part here along the far right is controlled using the switch this way instead. So it's straightforward once you get the hang of it. It's a little bit weird actually navigating through the system this way. It would be nice if it was touchscreen. I get it. It's kind of weird and out of the way there, but just having to go through this in order to adjust it, I'm not too crazy about it. I think it should be multi-function where it's this trackpad or a physical touch, but there's no physical touch. So you're going to see me moving around the screen, and I'm just using the trackpad along the very middle there in order to do it. So starting off on the navigation side of things. So the vehicle does have factory navigation. Straightforward, you could change up your heading using the option along the top left-hand side there. The one just under that, you could show buildings, landmarks, traffics, point of interest icon, things like that. There's the option of going plus or minus to zoom in or out, or you can go to menu in order to change a number of things out. When you're on one of these pages as well, there's the option along the outside of the trackpad. So you can go up or down this way instead, and then that is going to shift you up or down pages. So if there are sub pages that are available, you can move up or down this way if you want to. So let's start off on the map view side of things. There's 2D versus 3D view, etc. So there are different views that are available. You can change up the color scheme to other options. So you can permanently lock it out to either a day or nighttime mode. In the auto mode though, the vehicle is going to figure out whether or not it's the dark or the bright map instead. So this is the way that the daytime map looks. Nighttime would just be a dark view instead. There are different options there. With your map view, you can change up whether or not those buildings or landmarks showing up, point of interest icons, etc., or traffic views. So you'll see a few things shown, a few different spaces. Do you want the fastest time or the shortest distance available when it's calculating your available routes? You could say whether or not you want different things on the route. Do you want to avoid toll roads, ferries, unpaved roads, and things like that? So you can select or deselect any of these options, use HOV lanes, etc. And if we hop back and down, once that goes away, there we go. You can adjust your voice guidance volume. So as you're coming to upcoming turns, it can let you know. You can set that unique option. For your time of arrival, do you want the arrival time versus remaining when you've got an active route going? You can clear all of your history if there are map updates available, and then you can see some basic about information. If we hop back into navigation for a second, along the very bottom, you can find or see nearby point of interest icons instead. So if we click on find for a second, search for addresses, you can search if you want to by either going keyboard, so along the top side there, or you can use the pad here in order to be able to search for addresses instead. So if you know where you want to go,
plus sign.
That's not right, that would be a T that I'm after. So it takes a little bit of getting used to doing this.
T.
There we go.
I. M.
There we go, and you can kind of start going that way, and then you can move up and down between the different options here. So again, it takes a little bit of getting used to the trackpad. You do also have the flexibility of using the voice command prompt if you wanted to be able to navigate to a route that way instead. That's probably one of the easier ways to do it, but you can select through all of the available options here, and then just click on one and hit go, and it's going to give you the turn-by-turn directions that you need. Now, you could also find an additional address here, and one of the big benefits there is that if you wanted to go to multiple stops, you've got the flexibility to do it. Again, you can see what's nearby, take a detour, etc., or click on the part along the very bottom to see your total route overview. Along the top right side, you can move in order to go to different map preferences and things like that instead. So back to your navigation menu. When an active route's going, inside of the cluster screen, you can use the little scroll wheel here in order to go down, and you'll have not full mapping cluster, but at least some turn-by-turn directions. So you could use the infotainment system there to see the main map, get your turn-by-turn directions there instead. So straightforward. If you didn't have an active route going, so if we look at canceling the route here, That just turns into a traditional compass instead. If you go back to Find again, you could either browse or see all of your recent addresses too. So you could see all of the different addresses that you've gone to. Straightforward. Download places, you can also set our home address or additional favorites. One of the benefits there is that if you have a home address set up, you can hit the voice command prompt and you'd be able to say navigate home, and it would navigate to whatever the home address is that you've got saved there instead. But that's using factory navigation, straightforward. And next up is going to be different radio options or audio options. So you've got AM, FM, SiriusXM that are available. So if we shoot across, there's USB music, Alexa, and things like that. So starting off with SiriusXM. There we go. Once it loads up, you can see all of your favorited stations along the very bottom. In order to be able to save a station this way, all you're going to do is tune to whatever station that you'd like to. Once you do, you could push in order to be able to add in the station as well. Down along the bottom, you can also do a bigger push and hold. So it's a long push and hold in that button to remove a favorite, replace it as well. So it's straightforward to do. So in order to just be able to save presets, you just go add favorite. But in order to overwrite, just do a long button push and hold there, which is going to give you the option of removing favorites, replacing, etc. With SiriusXM, you've got some additional options too. So if you go view more, you can scan, you can pause the actual song itself as it goes. Straightforward. Menu along the top right side is going to give you advanced sound settings, channel schedules, and then your SiriusXM settings. So you've got your tune options, scanning, notifications, all your basics. And if we go into, actually let's go back for a second and jump into FM radio. So it's going to give you some additional options too. So you've got all of your available station lists. So if you're new to an area, you can refresh to see what stations are available, or you can swipe up or down in order to go to different pages as well. And then in order to select a station, all you're going to do is highlight and click. It's probably the more difficult way to do it. You can see along the bottom, you've also got all of your available stations that way too. So all of your available presets. If you wanted to, same idea, big push and hold in order to either remove the favorite or replace it, or you can add it to the home page instead. So you can see there, we've got different stations available too. Swiping across in order to get to your different preset pages. So again, in order to save in a station, all you're going to do is tune to whatever station that you want to. It's kind of neat, you can kind of tune this way instead. Or use the voice command prompt. 94.9 FM.
Playing 94.9 FM.
So if you already know the stations that you like to listen to, I'd recommend just changing it using your voice first, and then just going through and then replacing and setting up all of your favorites that way. Straightforward to do. You could move stations this way. You can just do a general scan, so it'll just keep on playing until you hit stop. So you've got options there. And then if we go other way for AM radio, that's going to give you the same options. So you've got different stations. So all of your presets are going to be different based off of the source that you're in. And then you've also got the flexibility of changing out your sources and things like that using the pad along the left side here. So inside of the cluster screen, if you hit the menu button, that's going to bring up the option of changing between all of your available sources. So if there are certain sources you never use, you can customize it to remove them from the list, but you can easily move between all of your available sources and your favorites this way instead. It's pretty straightforward to do, but if you want a full walkthrough on the steering wheel and the cluster, etc., you'll find that down in the description of this video. But hopping back home now, let's go back. So that's AM, FM, Bluetooth audio. Once you have a phone connected, or if you have an MP3 player with Bluetooth support, that would show up. So next up, let's actually go ahead and connect a phone. We're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So we're just going to connect new device. On your phone, you're going for Bluetooth, and you're going to be looking for hands-free link. There we go. You can see that that's shown up. You're just going to connect through. There we go. Pin numbers there match up, so let's go ahead and pair there. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. Obviously, if it was yours, you could say yes, and you can stop here. So the phone's connected over Bluetooth. So you can make phone calls, or you'd be able to stream audio that way if you'd like to. But you've also got Apple CarPlay. And one nice thing is that it's wireless. It is backwards compatible. So if you wanted to use a USB cable, you absolutely could. It's going to be a USB type A, and then you're plugging it in just under the armrest there. But you want to make sure that it's a data transfer cable. But if you're running into problems and CarPlay's not even showing up here, check down in the description of this video. I've put together some common CarPlay fixes that you can try that are applicable to every manufacturer. But from here, we're good. So let's just go ahead and change to CarPlay. There we go. And then on the device, it's saying, do you want to use CarPlay with hands-free link? So let's go ahead and use CarPlay. Should take a second there, and look at that. 3, 2, 1, we're fully connected. So you can see there, we've got our little split screen still, so you can use factory navigation or other options along the right side if you'd like to, with CarPlay along the left. So looking at CarPlay, you've got your current time, connection, and battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, and then miscellaneous application along the left side there. And moving down to the bottom button there is going to give you access to this little tray view instead. And same idea, swiping across, you've got support for Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze. Waze is my go-to application on Apple CarPlay, but that one's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. The big reason why I love Waze is that as you, it's really tricky using this little touchpad. There we go. So as we move around up and down using this, you can see as people mark things on the map. So if there are speed traps and things like that, you can see that people have marked off that there are police there. So you could mark things off yourself if you want to, but I just think that that is a very, very useful feature inside of Waze. Boom. There we go. And you can mark things off yourself too. So if you notice that there are traffic, if there's a speed trap, there's a crash, hazards on roadways and things like that, you can give people a heads up. Apple CarPlay doesn't have video playback support, so it's strictly going to be audio. You can use Hoopla, which is a library app, Live Ones, a radio app, and there are so many options. If you wanted to just use podcasts and things like that, that's available through the screen here too. And once you're connected to CarPlay, on the steering wheel, you've got a button along the left-hand side here, so your voice command prompt. With CarPlay connected, if you do a short button push, that's going to bring up your assistant for the vehicle. But if you take that same button, if you do a long button push and hold instead, that is going to bring up your Siri assistant. So short button push is for the factory assistant for the screen. Long button push and hold is going to be for your Siri assistant instead. Then back to this other screen, if we shoot across into settings, you'd have the flexibility of adjusting out CarPlay a little bit here. So if you wanted to put yourself into a driving focus mode instead, you could change out the wallpaper. So if there's a color scheme that works better and speaks to you, you'd have the flexibility of changing it out to any of these other color schemes instead. So watch this. Yeah, look at that. Something different. Kind of nice. Now, you've also got the flexibility of adjusting out the icons here. So on your phone, you're going to go into your settings and then general and then CarPlay, find your vehicle, and then that's going to give you other options here. So you want to go into customize. When you hit customize, that's going to give you this option. So you can see all the hamburger icons. So you can just drag them and then move them into whatever position that you'd like to. So if there are certain apps you want to use, you can adjust it. Anything with a minus arrow next to it, so minus icon, you're just going to press that in order to remove that feature from the vehicle. So we've removed a few things. So if we swipe across, other way, there we go. You can see there. So those apps have been deleted, but it saves it along the bottom of the phone. So you could add them back in if you want to. If you've played around with the layout here too much and you don't like what you've done, along the top right side of your phone, there's a reset option. So you're going to go reset, reset, and that's just going to bring you back to that factory default layout screen there instead. So that basic icon view. If you hit the home icon along the trackpad, that's going to bring you back to the home screen. You can hop back into your phone there if you'd like to, hop back into just the general CarPlay screen, back to CarPlay instead. And then if you go into your Bluetooth audio, that's going to be for CarPlay or connecting an additional device. So if you wanted a different device, you could do that. If you go into settings, connections, and then if you go Apple CarPlay, you've got your Apple CarPlay device and then some advanced options where you've got some basic network ID and password info. Nothing exciting there. You can click back on the phone that way if you wanted to disconnect. So we've disconnected from CarPlay. And then if we hop back into Bluetooth now, you can see that that phone's been connected strictly for audio. So straightforward, but that's how you set up Apple devices inside of the Acura TLX. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So if you weren't on the screen, again, all we're going to do is click on either Bluetooth audio, phone, or settings, just going into connections, Bluetooth, and then you just want to connect a new device. From there, all you're going to do is wait for, there we go, hands-free link to show up again. And it'll take a second. There we go. Pin numbers there match up. So let's go ahead and hit OK on the phone and pair on the infotainment system. There we go. Do you want all access to messages and contacts? This is not my car again, so I'm going to say no to that one. And same thing, you can stop here. You're connected for phone calls and for streaming audio. But you can also enable wireless Android Auto. Same idea, it's backwards compatible with USB if you wanted to set it up that way. But we're going through connecting Android Auto right now, and a few seconds in. Welcome to Android Auto, so let's just go ahead and hit continue. And 3, 2, we are fully connected. So you can see here, you've got like a multi-split screen now. So you've got your maps, a little tray, which that tray is locked into place, so you can't adjust this one. And then you've got your home screen there too. And then you've got your maps along the side. If you hit the map icon, so you've got a series of icons along the bottom. So you've got your icon view. So if you want to go that way, back to this view, you've got a voice assistant. So if you wanted to bring up your assistant for your phone, you'd have the flexibility to do that. And then across the bottom here, there are a series of different apps that are available too. So you've got your Google Maps, there are other options here too. But if you hit the map icon, that's going to bring you into Google Maps instead. So full screen, you can search for addresses this way. You could look at different things. So if you wanted to look at 3D views, point of interest icons and things like that, you can adjust it out. You can hit the button along the very bottom here again. So scroll yourself down in order to get back to this little split screen as well. And if you've got Waze installed on your phone, like Waze icon is there, but if you've got it installed on your phone and it's not showing up, check down in the description of this video for some common fixes that you can try in order to get Waze working. But on the phone, you can customize the layout here too. So in order to do it, you go into your phone here and you can see I've got Android Auto. So you're searching for Android Auto. You're going to go to Android Auto settings, and that gives you some options. You're looking for customized launcher. And that's going to give you the flexibility of adjusting this out. So if you wanted Waze on the top, if you want news up there as well, you can do a drag and drop in order to adjust them. Anything with a check mark next to it, you can either add or remove it from the screen. But it's not customizable dynamically the same way it was on the iPhone side. So in order for those changes to come into effect that you've made here, you've got to hit that little home icon. You're going to go into your settings, connections, then you've got Android Auto. You're going to connect, and then you're going to go here and go disconnect. So it's disconnected Android Auto. You're going to then hop back inside and reconnect to Android Auto. And when it launches in, icon view there, the changes that we made have now come into effect. So like I said, not dynamic, but you can at least easily adjust it that way if you'd like. Hopping back home into your settings, if we go back into connections again, and then into Android Auto, you've got the phone that I've been connected to for Android Auto. So I can disconnect right now. So Android Auto is disconnected again. But if I go into Bluetooth, I've got both phones that are now connected here. I can select one phone for audio and one phone for phone calls. So if I wanted to use the Android for phone calls, but I wanted to use the iPhone for audio, you'd have the flexibility to do it. So you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both, but it's kind of neat that you've got that little mix and match, and you can kind of figure out which one does which. So you can even see here, the icons are grayed out. So I'm going to be using the Galaxy for phone calls, and then the iPhone for streaming audio that way. If you hit options here, you can toggle Bluetooth off completely, but if you select either phone, you could either say whether or not you want it hooked up for phone calls or audio, or hit options to then delete a device and just delete. And that's remove the Galaxy from the phone or from the vehicle, hitting options again, delete and delete. And all of a sudden, both phones have now been disconnected. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the Acura TLX. And moving into settings, we're going to do last because there's a lot to it. So if we swipe across, as I mentioned, USB audio's there. Alexa, you've got to be signed in. The vehicle does have a hotspot available. There's some ambient light available as well. And the ambient light, it's subtle, but it's kind of neat that that's available as an option. And you can swipe across into a series of different looks. So if there's a different color scheme that you're a big fan of, you can adjust it out. Some of them look pretty neat. You can have it set dynamically, which means that as you move into different drive modes, it's going to change up the look on the inside as well. Obviously really noticeable at night, but it does look pretty sharp at the same time. Nice. But it's cool that you've got ambient lighting available, and you can also adjust the brightness of the ambient light too. From there are some shortcuts, Acura link, not exciting, and then messages if they were available. So I guess the big one now, let's go through some settings. Starting off on the system side of things, you can adjust individual volumes. So if you wanted different sound settings and things like that to be at different volumes, you can do that. So if you wanted your phone call volume higher, system sounds lower, you can easily adjust or reset it to the default. There's the touchpad sensitivity as well. So do you want high or low sensitivity? You can adjust the date and time this way. So you can change it your time format. Do you want to be in the military time instead? So 12 versus 24-hour mode. You can set your date and time this way. So these things are grayed out because we're in the auto mode. So if you select through and turn auto off, you can then all of a sudden manually set the date and time. But honestly, for the most part, you just want to be auto date and time. The one thing you might want to change out is your time zone. So if you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one time zone to the other, turn auto time zone off, and then you can manually select whatever time zone you'd like to be in instead. Straightforward. But yeah, like I said, for the most part though, you're just going to be in the auto mode for most of these things anyways. And back from there. Next up is system units. So do you want to be in either miles or kilometers? And when you adjust it out this way, so through the infotainment system, it's also going to change up what's going on inside of the cluster screen. That's one of the nice things about it being a digital cluster, so you can adjust it out there, but it adjusts everything. So your total range, your fuel economy, as you go into, there you go, your total trip counters and things like that, that adjusts out whether you're in kilometers or miles instead. You could change the language, so do you want to be in either English, French, or Spanish? You can do a full factory reset too, so if the screen's giving you problems, you can do a full reset. There's a way to do a soft reboot as well. I'll show you towards the end of this video. There's some basic about information, so all of your basics, Wi-Fi addresses, etc. And then some advanced options too, so location and then interruption. So most people, you're not going to worry about most of this stuff. Hopping back into connections gives you the option of toggling Bluetooth off completely. You can connect to a Wi-Fi network at home if you'd like to, or you can change yourself into a mobile hotspot. You do need to have a data plan for that to work. You could adjust out some connections for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and that's the basics of connections. You can adjust out the display a tiny little bit, so you can adjust the brightness this way if you'd like, so going one way or the other. You can permanently lock it in to a day or a night mode. So yeah, as you can see there, super dark. But in this mode, so what's going to happen here is essentially an auto mode. So later on at night, it's going to flip to night mode just based off of how bright it is outside. Or you can turn the display off, button press to bring it back to life again. Hopping back into display, the other option, more settings where you can adjust the contrast or the black levels as well. Again, really refining it and making it your own. From there are a series of different driver settings. If we go into our position settings, so with the driving position, so your seat position memory, so if you've got driver seat memory inside the vehicle, what's going to happen is with this setting enabled, when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's essentially going to back the seat up in order for you to be able to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. But like I mentioned, you've got driver seat memory there. So set your driver's seat up the way that you'd like to. Once that's done, you then push set in either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile. And from there, options for lighting. You've got different high beam modes. I always recommend with your high beams, keep auto high beam turned on. So with your lights, you've got a few different options here. So along the left stick, you could toggle the lights off that way completely if you'd like to, and then you've got different modes. But when you're in the auto mode with the auto high beam, if the vehicle recognizes high beams are needed, it's going to turn them on for you automatically. But when you're in the auto high beam mode, you can't permanently lock your high beams out. In order to do that, you have to be in the bottom headlamp mode. You can then push away to lock them out, pull towards you to turn them off. But in the auto mode, if the vehicle recognizes high beams are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again as necessary. So I definitely recommend keeping that auto high beam setting turned on. You can adjust some options for your ambient light. So do you want it to be max, high, etc. So just a few basic options there. Changing your ambient light theme, again, you find a few of these things, a few different spots. Your interior lights, do you want them to automatically turn off in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or 60? Your headlight timer. So when you go to lock the vehicle, do the lights just turn off or do they stay on for up to 60 seconds? That's when you go to lock the vehicle. Your headlights on when you're with your wipers going, etc. Nothing exciting there. Your door setup. When do you want your doors to automatically lock or unlock? As you start to drive, when you shift out of park, or do you just never want them to automatically lock? And then unlock is the same idea. So when do you want your driver's door to become unlocked? Let's see, when you go to lock the vehicle, do you want to get some sort of an audible feedback letting you know? And when you go to lock your vehicle, do you want your mirrors to automatically fold in, or do you want to have to manually adjust for them to fold in instead? With your key unlock, when you go to unlock using the fob, do all doors become unlocked or just the driver's door? You can push the unlock button twice in order to unlock all doors. Your key access light, same idea. When you go to lock the vehicle unlocked, do you want to get flashes? Do you want to get beeps? You can turn remote start on the key fob off altogether. There's a walk away auto lock feature too. So let's hop outside and I'll show you a few of these features and how they work. In order to remote start, what you're going to do, make sure vehicle's locked, push and hold that little engine hold button along the top for a few seconds. See there? We're remote started. In order to cancel that remote start, push and hold that engine hold button again. And then that is going to turn off the remote start. But it's cool because you get some feedback as you're pushing the button there as well. If you double push the unlock button and hold on the second push, watch this. You're going to go 1, 2, and hold. You can release this to pause it part way and then double push again. So 1, 2, and hold. And not only is it rolling down all 4 windows, but it's also opening up the sunshade as well, and like the sunshade and the roof, which is fantastic. So they're all pretty cool. I wish that the window trick would be up as well, but at least you could roll the windows down. You can change up the meter setup too. So your outside temperature display, is that showing? So you can see right inside of the cluster along the bottom side, you can adjust that out. And then your A versus B counters. So you've got a few different options here. So do you want the trip counter to automatically be reset every time you refuel the vehicle when you turn the car off, or do you want to manually reset instead? So it's nice having this option. If you wanted to do it off of every ignition cycle because you're using your car for business, that's where you're going to make it happen. And then on the steering wheel here, so if we go up a level, well, actually I guess we're there already. So your trip computer, you could then go either left or right for your trip A versus trip B. In order to reset, once you're on this page, you just push and hold the button here for a second, and that's just going to recenter you out there again back to 0. So you can adjust that out for both trip A and for trip B. With the turn-by-turn display, if you had an active route going, that would show up on the right side of the cluster screen. Your rear seat reminder, when you go to turn the vehicle off, you'll get a little notification inside of the cluster telling you to check the back seats. Your driver assistance setup. So these are basics for safety settings. For your collision warning, if you're going to potentially get into a collision, it can let you know. Let's see here, road departure warnings, etc. So if you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, you've got some options there. Lane keeping assist, so same idea. If you start to veer over into another lane without signaling, it can beep at you, or you can have nothing happen. Your blind spot system, do you want to get a visual alert or an audible and visual alert? And the blind spot system is right there. So as somebody enters the blind spot on either side, it's going to highlight there on the driver, opposite side on the passenger, letting you know that somebody's in your blind spot. There's the driver attention monitor too. So if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. And then traffic sign recognition. Do you want your traffic signs to come up if it recognizes the speed? Yay, nay. And basic maintenance info. So if you're changing oil out yourself, you can reset that if you'd like to. So reset all that are due. And that's the basics for vehicle. Not basics, there's so many things. Then you've got your camera options here with your surround camera. So the surround camera is not standard across the board, but when you've got that camera going, do you want to show your guidelines, yay or nay? So fixed versus dynamic, or both. So as we move into reverse, so you've got your fixed guidelines there that are yellow, but as you go to rotate the steering wheel, you've got them turning into a dynamic instead. So you've got that available. So you've got your surround camera, so your 360 view along the right side, backup camera there, with the option of moving in between a few different views as well if you'd like. You can dim it out, back into park. It's going to bring us that way. So those guidelines, you can adjust those out. Cross traffic monitor is a good one to keep on. And the reason why is because if you're backing up and somebody's coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right side, it's going to let you know of a potential collision this way. And then do you want to show your rear camera after you go to reverse? So if the rear view camera is on, you start driving at low speeds, it'll keep that camera going for a few seconds. So you can adjust some sound settings, so adjusting things like the treble, mid-range, and bass. Let's see, this is actually kind of low. So if we just go reset back to center again, what I'd recommend is close to what they had. So treble down a few points, but bass cranked a few points, gives pretty good audio inside of this ride. So there are different options there, but what I'd recommend here is play one of your favorite songs. And as that song is playing, adjust this out until it sounds perfect for your ears. You can adjust out the different volumes here. Let's see, do you want it focused on the entire vehicle, just the driver, front versus rear? So you've got that option, or you can kind of do like a finer tune option here, where you can do a little bit of a balance or fade this way instead, or resetter in order to bring you back to the middle. Some notifications, nothing exciting. And is that it? I think that might be it. Oh yeah, all of our notifications, etc. Perfect. And then other things to point out, the one that's visible here is going to be your four-way blinkers. You can adjust it out there, see what's going on inside of your cluster screen as well. Down low, there's dual zone climate control. So toggle it on off this way. If the passenger side is set to something different, you can hit the little sync button, and that's going to sync the driver's or the passenger side to whatever the driver's side set to. Do you want it going to windshield face feet, Frankenstein combination, turn on your AC, adjust fan speed, air circulate, and then your defog, defrost, etc. From there, you've got the option for, you're at least going to have heated first row seats, but there is the option for ventilated first row seats here as well. Dropping down, this is going to be your little selector to get into different drive modes. So there's the comfort mode, which is more of like a relaxed driving, normal mode for your day-to-day, versus your sport, which gives you a little bit of a different look as you move between. But if you twist and hold, that's going to put you into a Sport Plus mode. So if you're in Sport or Sport Plus, you can do a little bit of a launch control. So in order to do it, once you've got yourself set up in Sport or Sport Plus, you're going to hit the brake and the gas pedal simultaneously. That's going to kind of limit you, oh yeah, when you're in drive. So it's going to limit you to about 3,000 or 4,000 RPM. And then from there, you just take your foot off the brake and then you're just going to launch. It is beautiful. And then if you push and hold that dynamic button in, that's going to be your individual mode, where you'd then be able to adjust things out. So do you want to be in either normal, comfort, or sport for your engine, for your suspension, idle stops, gauges, and things like that? So you can really adjust this out and make it your own. So that's where that individual mode comes into play, but realistically, you'll probably use one of these other modes most of the time. The auto start-stop system is the one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine if you come down to a complete stop. It might happen, might not. It's up to the vehicle. You can toggle it off, and every time you start the vehicle up again, you're going to have to toggle it off again. There's the brake hold too. So with brake hold, when you come down to a complete stop, you take your foot off the brake, the car's not going to move. So that's a pretty good safety setting. You've got your park, reverse, neutral, drive, etc. And then if you've got the forward, reverse, park sensing systems, you can see there, I've got that forward sensing system going, so you can see all sorts of chaos in front of me. Mentioned there your trackpad, you've got your volume rocker, and then you can change between songs or stations this way. If for whatever reason the screen's giving you problems, like let's say Apple CarPlay is not working, Android Auto's not working, etc., you can do a full factory reset, which is going to wipe everything from the screen. That's the last thing that you want to try. What you actually want to do is a soft reboot. So in order to make that happen, there are 3 buttons here. You're going to push and hold all 3 of them for a few seconds. Once you do, you're going to enter the dealer diagnostic data page. So from here, you could do a self-diagnostic, detail info, etc. You're just going to click on the bottom option, so detailed information, and then you're going to go into hardware auto detect. From there, don't change anything, leave it as is. You're just going to hit apply. Once you do, just hit OK. And yes, and that's essentially going to launch you into a soft reboot cycle instead. So it's going to take a few seconds in order for the change to actually happen, or the reset to happen, I should say. But what you're doing is soft rebooting the screen. So all of your settings, everything is going to be saved. So all of your addresses that you've saved, all of your stations, your phones that you've connected, etc., will still be saved by doing this. But this is what you can do, a soft reboot cycle, if you're running into any problems. So again, we're not actually going into any of the dealer diagnostic information. We're just doing a soft reboot cycle there instead. So I know that this has been a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Acura TLX. From there, let's go ahead and adjust. You can adjust some languages out, so change it to English,